I tend to attract the wrong type of people or end up in toxic relationships. It's like I have a pattern of picking partners who aren't good for me. How can I break this cycle and attract healthier, more compatible partners? Okay, so we have man, woman, the two sexes of human life. Now, I'll be going into both perspectives, not just from a man's perspective, but also from a woman's perspective. Not that I have that pure insight, but you know what I'm saying. I am not the most qualified person to talk about this, but there are a couple of things that I would suggest that are probably likely the reason why this keeps happening to you if you keep ending up in toxic relationships. The first reason that comes to mind, actually before I even tell you what this reason is, I want you to look up this book. So there's a book here called How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LePera. If you read that book, it will probably liberate you from a lot of the childhood trauma that you suffer from. Because a reason you may be suffering from toxic relationships could be a result from childhood trauma. And this is, I know myself, I had a lot of anger, I had a lot of sort of internal struggles that stemmed from childhood upbringing. And it's important to forgive your parents, depending on the context of how severe they've treated you, because severe things have happened to me, severe things have happened to you probably as well. But do forgive them and read that book, and you have, once you recognize what's going on, then you'll be able to take better actions and you have a better understanding. So I would say you probably don't know what to do. And this would go if you're both man or woman, because you just don't know what to do. The information that you have today is kind of the reason where you've ended up here today, because you don't know any better. You don't know the answer. And so you're relying on very old knowledge, and you're relying on this old knowledge to get you up in the toxic relationships. And this is partially the reason why you're doing this. Another thing I could suggest is, now in my last video, I mentioned this, if you want to meet people, you need to put yourself in a position where something is likely to happen. You're likely to meet people, you're likely to flirt, you're likely to end up having sex or something. The reason at the same time you're ending up in a toxic relationship is because you put yourself in that position. Same goes over here. Take accountability, please. Even if this other person is toxic, even if they're a diagnosed narcissist and they hurt you and they destroy your life, it's not necessarily 100% their fault for being such a prick. If it's a narcissist we're talking about, it's just their nature. They're like a tiger. It's like a wild animal. Of course they're going to eat their prey. But is it a tiger's fault if it kills and eats you? If you put yourself in the cage with a tiger, you put yourself in that position, and that's why you ended up here in a toxic relationship. Another reason you're probably in a toxic relationship is because you choose to be in a toxic relationship. You might say that you don't want this, you don't want that, you don't want this, blah, blah, blah. But you still choose to be in a toxic relationship. You still choose that. You do have a decision. You do have the power in your control to either guide that in an area you'd like it to go or go away. You have some control and power, particularly over yourself. You might not have power over what the toxic person is doing in your relationship, but you have power and you have the ability to react and respond accordingly. You could have boundaries. It's really more about how you enforce those boundaries. Are you going to be an absolute prick in enforcing them? Are you going to be a pushover and let people walk all over you? You know, it's because you choose this. It goes here actually. You choose to put yourself in that position. And it's the same for a lass. So you choose to put yourself in that position. You are probably subconsciously choosing to be in a toxic relationship because you outright choose that. And if you've ever heard of the law of attraction, stop saying, I don't want. I don't want X, Y, Z. Because in this language, this is actually a neuro-linguistic programming actually, I'm pretty sure. The brain doesn't really recognize the word don't. And it just goes, I want X, Y, Z. I don't want toxic relationship. I want it equals I want toxic relationship. So you need to instead focus on what you do want. I do want X, Y, Z. What are you painting in your mind? Are you painting a picture of burning fires? I don't want burning fires. I don't want this house crumbling down into rubble on top of me. I don't want chaos. I don't want, to be wearing shabby clothes all the time. You're painting a picture of it's still painting a picture, and the mind brings that to fruition. So instead, I want a healthier relationship. I want clearer communication. I want to be treated with respect and love. I am worthy of receiving love and sex and so on. So you need to start telling yourself these stories from now on. And you don't go saying this, let's say you're a dude and she's like super bitchy and she never respects you, etc. You don't go saying her and putting all the pressure on her to change. No. You need to change yourself. You need to be... How do you expect your partner to reciprocate any of that type of behavior towards you if you can't even do it yourself? Now, I'm not saying put up with toxic behavior. Actually, you should put up with it, but not like long term. You should not like tolerate it and let it under the bridge. There needs to be some punishment. There needs to be some type of, not punishment in the sense that it makes the other person feel uncomfortable. You just need to, you yourself need to be open to communication. You need to say, hey, if there's something bothering you, I'm here to listen. I understand maybe you are feeling upset and that's why you've said that. I don't appreciate you telling me to shut up, for example, Just something. I hope what I'm saying here doesn't get misconstrued, because I'm not saying punish someone for being toxic with you, because telling the other person, I want you to do this, blah, 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 it's not going to work. It's going to be ineffective. And yeah, you need to be holding your 80% of the relationship up. You hold your percent up. She'll worry about her 20%. Well, from your perspective, it's 20%. If you are the woman, this gets reversed. You focus on your 80% of the relationship and you don't worry so much about his 20%. Please. Is there anything else that I can suggest that why you end up being in toxic relationships? Is there anything else? Yes, I will tell you. It is your associations. The people you associate with, you reflect their habits. If you have toxic friends and you listen to their advice, then you're more likely to implement their advice. If they say, oh, he was a narcissist, or if they say, oh, he's such a loser, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, you drop that. If you want to keep these toxic friends around, then by all means, recognize their own toxic behavior and choose to not absorb their information. Choose to distance yourself from that. If, basically it's like this. If I offer you a nice cold drink of water, what are the chances you're going to take that water? Maybe it's even alcohol if that's your thing. You either have a yes or a no. And you might say no today, you might say no yesterday, tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. But at some point, you're probably going to be saying yes. And then even if you have to cave in, you'll say yes. So all this toxic environment, this toxic friendships that you have, recognize it and distance yourself from it. Especially if you recognize the pattern. It's like this. TikTok, you should know TikTok. You say to yourself, I'm going to spend like 5 minutes just relaxing for a second. And it's like 2 hours later, you've been on TikTok and YouTube just scrolling through mindlessly like a zombie, being entertained and thinking that you're getting ahead, maybe. But you just ended up, wasting 2 hours. So I said to myself just the other day, I know that if I open up TikTok and spend time on this app, it'll be another 2 hours and I won't even get anything done. So it's the same here with the toxic friendships. Even the internet. Stay away from the internet, actually, to be honest. My advice, I'm being fair dinkum when I say all this stuff. Like, I'm being absolutely fair dinkum. But just remember, this information may not apply to you. Maybe only 20% of the information I'm saying here applies to you. And this goes for absolutely everything else you see on the internet. Because it's a major trap if you get soaked up in that stuff. I know I have been. So, yeah, make sure that only 20% of what I'm saying here applies to you. This is if you're a lass, if you're a dude, only 20% applies here. And by the way, this is kind of how I choose to live myself as well. I choose not to have toxic, well, actually I do have toxic people that I know that I would communicate with. However, I recognize the toxicity. This is a habit, a bad habit, saying I don't want something. It's a very bad habit. I get into that trap all the time. But then sometimes I'm like, okay, if I have to answer this question, how to avoid that, you just replace the word don't with do. Paint a picture of what you do want. Stop choosing to be in a toxic relationship. Stop putting yourself in a position where you are going to be in a toxic relationship. And learn more stuff. Learn more. Like discover secret information that you had no idea about that could impact everything. That's all for this video. I hope you learnt something wonderfully, magical, awesomely. So yeah, leave a like, comment, and definitely share the video if you like this because yeah. Also, by the way, I don't have any products to sell at this time. I have some software, but if you would like to have one-on-one coaching with me, mentorships, tutoring, or blah, 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 I do offer that. You can just send me a DM or something.